Welcome back guys, today I want to talk to you about some real deep issues and the division that actually exists between Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. As you know, my first review about Assassin's Creed Valhalla was a real devastating one, but I also made it only after around 20 hours of playing the game. So meanwhile I've played around 120 hours like most of you, I finished the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean I totally turned my opinion around. But now we will take a much more educated look on the things that might be flawed in Assassin's Creed Valhalla and if they have actually been better in previous installments like Odyssey, Origins or even in the first Assassin's Creed games. The first topic on my list is stealth. We were also anticipating the return of social stealth in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but actually it turned out to be not a major feature at all. I mean, there are a lot of benches where you can just sit and cloak yourself, and there are a couple of monk groups which I can probably count on one hand inside the whole game, which you can use to blend in and be in social stealth. Especially these monk groups, I really never used them because I didn't want to wait for 2 minutes if I could just climb up the wall right next to that gate. The omnipresent environmental stealth was actually way better implemented in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey you would definitely become invisible whenever you hide in any bush or field. But in Assassin's Creed Valhalla you could just run around forever and they will hunt you across the whole map if you get really unlucky. So the omnipresent stealth in the world was actually reduced in Assassin's Creed Valhalla to force you to sit on a bench or to cloak yourself. And that also doesn't really work very well. But when we dig deeper into social stealth, that mechanic was only in place because the hardware 13 years ago was not really ready for having an omnipresent stealth mode in the world. You had some certain places where you can hide, where you turned invisible for all enemies, without having the hardware to have to calculate every side of you and every enemy by itself. So in fact, social stealth was only created because the hardware in the late 2000s wasn't able to do it better. And then we actually got a much more advanced omnipresent stealth mode in Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But actually that was poorly implemented in Assassin's Creed Valhalla to really force you to use the old-fashioned style. When we take a look at the story and the missions in the last 3 installments of the Assassin's Creed franchise, we will see a clear downward spiral. When we compare the assassination table with all the targets in Assassin's Creed Origins, there was a whole story arc just dedicated for every enemy, which we then ultimately have to kill in a boss fight or in an assassination attempt. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey we then had a much bigger roster of enemies to kill, and most of these were not implemented in a main story mission, but actually many of these still had a very good, very nice side story missions with a lot of quests and a lot of story to complete. But in Assassin's Creed Valhalla the roster even got bigger and it now looked more like an overlay to claim it to be an Assassin's Creed game. The majority of these enemies didn't have a mission or even a side mission, they were just random enemies, targets you have to find and kill. I didn't even bother to kill them all yet because it doesn't feel like they belong into this game. The game just focuses too much on being a Viking game instead of a proper Assassin's Creed game with meaningful story, with meaningful targets. There simply is no big society in the Viking world. They were just some random clans fighting each other, conquering some places. That's all about it. To have a proper Assassin's Creed game you need a big civilization which is infiltrated by some meaningful persons which control some parts of the world and some parts of the economy. That's the point, you have to have a big civilization like Rome, like Greek, like Egypt, then it works perfectly. But it doesn't really work with Vikings. And that is also a main problem of the story in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which consists of pledging for some random kingdom and reporting back to Randvi. There were 16 regions and you have to do it every time. If you compare that to the whole story of Assassin's Creed Origins, where you have to take revenge for the ones who killed your son, or if you want to find your family in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, these stories were much more diverse and had a lot more content than just pledging and conquering. And there's even one more very important topic regarding the story, because the removal of every meaningful side mission which could have been used to implement the order targets and replacing them by just meaningless world events is just a big cut of content. I don't want to stack those kernstones, I don't want to solve some puzzles, and I don't want to help people producing a fart. Instead I want some real quest to hunt down these order members. So why do we even have these order members if there is no dedicated mission to them? Half of these enemies is just an overlay to make it look big or make it look like an Assassin's Creed game, which it isn't. And that's not the only content cut we actually have here in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I mean, I can totally understand people who didn't like naval battles or didn't like ships and all the sea and traveling at all. I even think that Assassin's Creed Odyssey was not very well balanced for all the sea battles. There should have been much more better perks which really make you more invincible versus certain attacks from other ships. But instead of fixing these issues and make a proper Viking game with ships that are meaningful and properly used in raids, they simply removed all the sea, all the islands, all the naval travel, they removed all lieutenants, all ship perks, all ship weapons, they removed all ship upgrading, and they removed the recruiting. Just imagine if you did that to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you would literally remove 50% of the game. So that is actually not an improvement, it is just a cost-cutting move which was gladly taken by Ubisoft because so many people just didn't like it. And there was no replacement for it. They only stopped short of removing ships entirely because they still wanted to sell some cosmetics for your Viking boats. And the whole recruiting for lieutenants and perks, which actually also supported the stories because there were a lot of side missions which granted you a new lieutenant, were totally removed and replaced by the Jumps Vikings. And I've actually never really seen a Jumps Viking that made a major impact on my crew during a raid. So even if you don't really like sea battles at all, there were only like 2 or 3 forced sea battles in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and everything else could just have been skipped with fast traveling from A to B. So there is really no point in complaining about something you would have rarely used anyway in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but instead you forced them to remove half of the game for the next installment. These content cuts go actually hand in hand with more cuts to more content inside the game, because without a ship, without having anything major to upgrade which is a real material sink, they also have to put less materials inside the game. So the removal of the biggest material sink, which was your ship in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, also supported the idea of having completely removed all the loot from the game. I can totally understand that some people just doesn't want to find new swords on every enemy they kill, but finding absolutely no items from enemies is also just as bad. When you completely remove random loot from the game, you actually make it a really shallow, less complex game. That actually wouldn't be a problem at all if these items were as diverse as they were in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, all your legendary items had some very different, very meaningful engravings that made every gear piece very unique compared to each other. But in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, almost every armor has the same stats and there's nothing unique on all these items. So the Odyssey gear system would have worked perfectly for Assassin's Creed Valhalla if they only removed all the epics and all the random loot, which was totally not broken. They should not fix what is not broken. If we were just forced to use legendary gear like it was in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I believe everyone would be very happy with that game. It would have totally removed the random loot, it would have totally removed a lot of the complexity and still give a lot of room to improve your gear and make it diverse. That would have been the perfect solution which would make old players and new players happy at the same time. But instead they came up with a whole new gear system with runes and all that stuff. I've already said in a lot of videos that having a different armor set here in Assassin's Creed Valhalla totally does not affect your stats, it does not increase your damage, you will deal the same damage with any weapon, with any armor you wear in this game. So Ubisoft should actually be aware of that because they want to sell you these super cool, awesome items from the Helix store, but instead you won't deal more damage with it. So that is actually a problem for them, because if you don't deal more damage, if you're not more powerful with all these Helix store sets, then there's no point in actually buying them. And I would definitely not encourage you to do so, because this game has just a very flat damage increase. You are actually only about 4 times stronger compared to level 0 when you are at level 400. So all these 400 levels really don't matter much. Whereas a normal RPG would have an exponential damage increase where every level would actually matter a lot and make you a lot stronger than before. And on top of that, the runes also lose its efficiency, and the game doesn't even tell you that. So when you use the first 18.9% health rune, then the next one will only be 15, the next one will be 12, 10, 8. The game doesn't tell you that, but it secretly nerfs the runes as well. And have you ever looked at your mastery points? When you increase your mastery points by 1 or 2 or even 3 or even 10 points, have you ever checked your stats before and after? They don't even increase at all. You have to use a lot of points to get a 1 point increase for your damage or your attack. That is ridiculous compared to Odyssey, where every mastery point actually mattered. You could spend them on so many abilities. You could spend it on adrenaline, on assassin damage, on hunter damage. You could add it for bow charging speed or whatever you want. These masteries are just a joke. It's simplified and it fools you to give you the impression that it slightly increases your stats, but actually it does not increase them at all. And that's actually a complete pattern which goes throughout the whole game. They really didn't want you to have fun with Assassin's Creed Valhalla at all. They didn't want you to be powerful, they didn't want you to deal a lot of damage, they didn't want you to kill your enemies easily. They let you only start with 1 adrenaline, and the maximum you can get in the entire game is only 4 adrenaline bars. And the abilities you can use with your adrenaline are totally meaningless. Most of them are just so weak that I never ever use them. I only use like Dive of the Valkyrie and something else to just break the enemy's guard, but that's it. All these abilities are just a shadow of what they have been in previous games. Also, not everything in Valhalla is actually bad. They bring back shields, they bring back dual wield. There could have been so much opportunities by using a shield with different perks that could have opened up so much opportunities in making a really cool build, but they stopped short of it and they just didn't do it. And even though they managed to bring shields and dual wielding, they just stopped in giving us some proper small swords to play the game. That is just another letdown in a long list of big letdowns. So it actually turns out that the Vikings are the weakest faction I've ever seen in any Assassin's Creed game. The Templars, the Romans, the Greeks, the Egypt were all much stronger than these poor guys. If they really aimed for creating a very less complex game without having any fun to kill your enemies, then they really achieved that goal. Origins was really excelling in its story. Odyssey was very special for its gear system, and Valhalla just failed on both of these. There are a lot of parts in this series which just simply get constantly rewritten by the different development teams across the world. You could just share these codes between your teams. There is no problem in doing that. Why do you keep rewriting it and make it worse than it was? So I hope you liked this video. There are certainly a lot more topics, but these were the ones I picked for this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like, and see you next time.